Everyone checking in on Canadian MJ. The Farm Bill was signed today and all over every single social media. I've seen 150,000 posts about the Farm Bill. It almost seems like everybody's trying to get everybody else excited about it. And let's now buy some stocks. We'll see if it works. I do believe that we will see some upside in the near term, but in my opinion, that's due to the S&P 500 getting ready for an oversold bounce. And tomorrow's a very important day for that because we did get some signs in the S&P 500. Check out the video. I talk about that more in depth. But if we get that bounce going, we'll likely see Canadian MJ sector see a short-term bounce as well. CGC and some other names put out some press releases after hours. CGC pretty much saying we're now ready to go into the U.S. now that the Farm Bill has passed. That has already been known if you've been following CGC. But again, these are designed to ideally get some more of the herd aware of what's going on, I guess, because obviously anybody that's been involved in the space the last 2 weeks has known that this Farm Bill was coming and has probably already positioned. If anybody, I can't imagine anybody, waiting for the actual signing that's been following along to get in. And anybody that's going to get in is going to see a headline and say, oh, well, that's a federal change. Now it's time for me to get involved. So it's going to be new money. It's going to be people that are not already watching the sector. So that's something to be watching. CWeb put out a press release saying, congrats to the U.S. for making this historic step forward. And it's just companies trying to say, hey, this new law change helps us. Put your money over here, and we'll see if people do that or not. So we have 6 days in a row on CGC of lower highs and lower lows. The S&P 500 was extremely weak again today. It's a falling knife with no support, and we're looking for an hourly and daily oversold bounce to get going on the S&P 500. On any bounce for CGC, we're just looking for a lower high compared to 33.65. Here after hours, we're trading just above $29, so that would be a small gap up open if we were to open here tomorrow morning. But again, the longer term downtrend is what we're watching. So yes, we can see some short term upside, but unless we're going to see a 20% bounce, it's just going to be a daily lower high. We're going to need to bounce, set the lower high, set a higher low, and then change the trend, in my opinion, for any kind of follow through on these bounces. Cron on the daily time frame, more significant bear break, but here it is continuing to battle to hold 11 psychological support as we closed over that level yet again. So another dip below it. The gap to fill was 1057. We got down to 1068, so that has not filled yet, but we keep closing above $11. That's now essentially 6 days in a row that have tested it and held that support level. And the most important resistance is 1181 for the bulls to try and enter space without a lack of resistance. Again, if SPY bounces, if oil bounces, if the financial sector bounces, those are all the major components. If the market bounces, Cron is going to be looking to try and get over 1181 to set a clear daily lower high somewhere in the mid $12 range. All depends on the market bounce and whether we get follow through or not. APHA is getting tight. Very clear support level that the bulls want to maintain, 485. And the reason they want to maintain that support level is because there is a lack of support after that support level. So if that cannot hold, we could see another solid drop back down towards the bottom. So that's a very important support level of 485. After hours, we're up 2% in response to CGC news and what's going on after hours. The most important resistance is 617. So it's a clear tightening range that we've been in for the last week now. And why does it matter to hold this support of 485? Look what happens when you don't have support nearby. ACB, when we saw this bear break of 715, today we dropped down to 662 in just 1 day, essentially, after that support broke. So that's a very notable bear break and drop. That's about a 6% drop due to the lack of support. So the bulls are still trying to form a higher low and shift momentum. Any bounce on the daily under 806 is just a lower high. So at this point, we could see a clear 15% plus bounce and just set a daily lower high. So our support right now is down at 662. Bottom line is we do see some lower wicks on today's candlesticks with the S&P 500 bouncing, but overall, still a lot of proving that the bulls have to do to change anything on the daily timeframes. Tilray, TLRY, had that news after hours yesterday. Inside bar on the daily. Break of 74.11 would be bearish. Break of 80.68 and 82.39 would be bullish with a lack of resistance after those levels. Bulls are going to try and break those levels first thing tomorrow. They will be key for the potential to negate the daily bear flag. This is still a potential daily bear flag, but if we see a convincing break over 82.39, that will no longer be the case. Excuse me. So CWeb responding to the Farm Bill a bit, closing up at the high of the day. It's a really nice equilibrium. This is one worth watching because of the clear setup. We got our high, which is essentially a triple top. Low of consolidation, lower high. Now our higher low is set. That's at 1240, the most important short-term support level. We're going to look for a bounce and a lower high compared to 1682. We'll see how many days of follow-through we can get. And as you can imagine at this point, it depends on how much bounce the S&P 500 can get. Also worth watching is N. N is in free fall. And this is the kind of name that is a long-term red flag just by price action alone. Again, I know nothing about the fundamentals of N, aside from the fact that if you see a chart that drops 80% plus in a few months, it's a giant red flag. There's a lack of support anywhere nearby. We've dropped 33% in the last 3 days, but we're ready for an oversold bounce. So we close near the low. We're going to be watching. If we get a gap down open, it'll be the third gap down open. Keep an eye out for an oversold short-term bounce that's just going to form a daily lower high. And this is the kind of move that you want to lock in gains when you have them. The last thing you want to do is be a bag holder in a name that's dropped 80%. Think of how many bag holders are just waiting on any bounce attempt to try and exit their positions. This is a very ugly chart due to the lack of support. So keep an eye out for the oversold bounce on N. C-Web, daily equilibrium is a good one to be keeping an eye on. And everybody in the sector is watching the S&P 500. Can we get some daily oversold bounce going into tomorrow? Can we get a solid green day on the back of the Farm Bill with the S&P 500 bouncing? That would be the kind of short-term catalyst that could perhaps bring some life back into the MJ sector. Although, again, just looking for short-term life and a daily lower high to form on the vast majority of these charts. So that's where we stand. Potential for some bullish opportunity tomorrow. And we'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good rest of your night. Do some good things.